Hello everyone! Hi! And welcome back to my Instagram live series, Women Who Dared. And today I will be joined by my wonderful friend Aurelia. I see her already. Lily, let's call you in. Lily, can you send me a request to join the video so I can add you to the video? Yes, great. What happens now? Hi! Hi,
Great.
Lily! So
Hi,
wonderful to
Yvonne.
see you.
Oh, so nice to see you too. You look like you're in summer, not like
Yes,
us here
yes,
with a hot tea.
it's a little bit, it's getting warmer and warmer here. Oops, just let me adjust this. I think this is a good perspective. Hi, I'm so happy, but I can see you have also your palm trees in the background, so it's sort of tropical there as well.
That's my Thailand shrine in a way, you know. Like,
Oh, beautiful. Are you already sitting in your new practice?
no, I'm at home. I'm actually at home. Yeah.
I was hoping
But
to see the new practice.
I was there yesterday evening, yes. But I think the dark Berlin, yeah, wouldn't have made it nicer there.
Oh, so wonderful. I'm so happy that we managed this talk because our story goes way back to
No.
2018, it was now, right?
I like every time we speak, I'm thinking about it because it seems like it's been forever, but now 2018 has been quite some time as well.
So I will just, as a start, just start with 2018, where we met, where you were in your life, and then we make a quick jump and make the introduction where you are now, because this is also very exciting for me, because there were some steps now that you took, especially in the last year, where I was following online, but we haven't talked in person. So I'm very curious. So for everyone watching this video, I met Lily at a workshop that I was giving in 2018 in the European Parliament. And for those who don't know my story, I was working in Brussels myself within the European community for about 10 years as a lawyer and as a lobbyist. And after 10 years, I really quit everything there after feeling emotionally and physically burnt out and just feeling that that was not my way forward. That's not going to be the rest of my life. And I made all the changes that everyone who knows me a little bit more now, or who knows me just in my current career, had been following. So I became a coach, I became a trainer, I'm working with life designing, with positive intelligence, with brain based coaching. And for me, it was really a wonderful opportunity at this point in 2018 to be invited back to the European Parliament and to give a little talk and a little workshop about this time of transition and about this change between careers, between lives, and also being able to talk about my challenges, but to also be able to share with people what helped me. And in this conversation, in this talk and workshop, Lily was sitting, and I think the conversation triggered something in her because you were working at this time still at the European Parliament, a very, let's call it, classical career, a career that most people can relate to as an employee. I think you were working as a political advisor. Is this correct? Or
Yeah, as an political economic advisor to a member of the European Parliament, yes.
You were in another relationship at this time, right?
Yeah.
So also your personal life was
It's true, a lot has changed there as well, yeah.
Completely, completely. So that was the situation where we met, and something was triggered within Lily, and then a lot of things happened in between. And maybe let's just quickly jump in where you are sitting right now and how your life looks right now, just to have those two pictures in opposite.
Oh, yeah. And like also when you're sharing the story, I just remember how grateful I am that you came to the European Parliament and you gave that talk because, yeah, it's been many years now, but I'm so happy that we're still in touch and that you're
Oh,
in my life.
me
And
too. Me
yeah,
too.
so, well, yeah, life looks a bit different right now. I'm in my apartment in Berlin. I'm married to another man than the one I was with at that point. And yeah, we're thinking of starting a family. And so this is more like the personal life. There have been a lot
Mhm.
of changes too. I have two cats now that are sleeping here in the background. But professionally, also a lot has changed.
Mhm.
I then quit my job actually in 2018. I had been thinking, considering it for a very long time, and
Mhm.
I just couldn't jump, and eventually I did. And yeah, fast forward, right now I work as a holistic practitioner. So in German it would be Heilpraktiker für
Mhm.
Psychotherapie. So I work as a psychotherapist and also as a psychosomatic coach. And I mostly, but not only, work with women, but also with men, sometimes on the topic of sex, sexuality, intimacy, relationships, and also, yeah, the fears that are sometimes brought up
Mhm.
with these topics. So it has been quite of a career change if you want to see it like this.
Yes.
But yeah, I originally studied economics, and I think for a while I was kind of pushing it away. And I thought, why did I
Mhm.
even study it? It doesn't feel like me anymore. But I think now, in the last 2 years, I've been slowly integrating it back into my life
Mm.
because there are a lot of positive qualities, right, and strength that
Mhm.
come with that knowledge. And I'm also implementing it in my current work, maybe a bit
Mhm.
differently than I thought I
Yeah.
would. But yeah, this is the current status. Yeah.
Wow. But this is something I really love to hear because I think one of the fears of people when they make a drastic career change is like, oh, so everything is lost that I made up till now. So why did I even do this? And it feels like this sense of really loss and the sense of giving up something. And for me, I always want to make sure that people sense also nothing is ever lost, and even in the most dramatic changes, you take so much of your experience. And it's wonderful that you shared this now because people also often ask me, but you're a lawyer, you were a lawyer and you were working as a lobbyist and now you're a coach, but don't you feel like you gave up a big career? I said, I didn't give up. I'm using so much, and especially from my training as a lawyer, it's similar things. You are exposed to very complex situations, and you have to make sense of it in a very fast way, and you have to create something that's a good outcome for everyone involved. And this is what we learn in law. That is also the structure is something that you learn in economics as well. Give things structure. And I think this is something that is so important, to don't see career changes as losses. It's always so much that you take with you. So I'm really happy to hear this also from you.
Yeah, and I've been thinking about that topic a lot because I did sometimes feel like, wow, I studied for so long,
Uh-huh.
and it was not always easy.
Yeah.
So sometimes I wonder, did it really make sense actually to do it? But on the other hand, I also think when we choose to study something, we're probably 18, 19,
Yes.
depending on in which country you live in. And to assume that whatever decision you made at 19, that this will last your whole life. I mean, it doesn't have to be like this, right? And
Mhm.
I think also as humans, we're always changing and
Mhm.
evolving. And I think life kind of has to catch up with that.
Yes.
And especially when I talk to my grandma, she cannot always understand my decisions. And I think she comes from the generation after World War II. You know, that grew up in a lot of uncertainty. There was not enough food, there was not enough shelter. So of course the decisions she made in life, or she makes in life, are very different to maybe my generation, or even my younger siblings' generation.
Yes.
And I think we're in kind of like that privileged environment, that we don't have to stick with something that we chose like almost 20 years ago, right?
Yes.
In my case.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And also, exactly as you said, to see this opportunity as a gift and not something that is dooming, because you have many options and you can change. And sometimes this is also paralyzing for people, like, ooh, but if I have all these options, it would be easier if I, had just one and would have to stick to it. But to see it also from the perspective of richness and of gratitude, that we are able to do this now and we're able to explore. And exactly what you said, career changes are clear signals of growth. They are not a failure, or that you have to give up something, or that something didn't work out. It's just a pure sign that you grew over your life. And also that this growth, even if you make once the change, it still continues. And then it goes on and on and on. So also not to assume, if you make once this change, that this is now the end of it, that the change continues. And maybe we can go a little bit into your milestones that happened along the way, because I remember when after we met at the European Parliament, a couple of months later, you started working with me with coaching. And what you had in your mind back then as your next career steps are already completely different than you're doing right now. So what were a little bit the milestones that you could see along these years?
Yeah, I love this conversation, and also someone commented loving this conversation about career change, and I know this person from Brussels too.
Hello.
And I know there has been some career change too, so yeah.
Beautiful.
I love this. Yeah, we're constantly evolving, and like I also figured I'm someone who loves to learn a lot, so I think this is also why. Yeah, I'm just gonna like mention shortly about the steps. So when I quit my job back then, I didn't have another job. I didn't really know where to continue and what to do, but I knew that I wanted change. So this was very clear to me. And also when I look up the old papers or my old notes from the online course I did with you and the coaching, it says like I want to work with women. I want to work more together with women, for women.
Yes.
Because that was something I was really missing in my life back then.
Yeah.
And yeah, fast forward, it's like this is my life essentially. So this has been really amazing to see for myself how kind of organically I developed into that person. So I kind of set the intention back then, 2018, and yeah, now I think I have a little plant that came out of it. But it was not always like so straightforward, because when I quit my job, right, I traveled to Thailand. So when we were talking over the phone or Zoom, I think it was back then also, I was actually in Thailand. And I was thinking also of working with women. I was planning a couple of weekend retreats, and it was mostly based around mindfulness, about yoga, meditation, breath work, and essentially how to bring women together in this and offer something for each other. So instead of thinking that we're coming in together as a group and there's going to be one teacher or one leader, rather also what can we all bring in and support each other. Yeah. And yeah, this is something I did also with 2 colleagues that I met in Thailand as well. And we organized several women weekend retreats where we combined a bit all of that. And then I was mostly teaching yoga, meditation, breathwork in Berlin, kind of like slipped into that. It just happened. And then COVID hit, right? So everything started to be online. And I thought I could be one of the 1,000 yoga teachers that who's doing something online. But then actually it allowed me to go more into my niche, more into the women's work, actually leading meditation just for women, for female bodies. Something that I had really lived and learned in Thailand during my 8-month stay there. And so this kind of became my niche, really working with the female body and with our specific needs. And while being in that environment and actually like meeting new people, everything was online, right? But maybe you remember everyone was really kind of not excited, right? Because we had COVID, but it was more like, now there is something I can do about for myself. It was more like this intention setting, and maybe people had to work less and they had a bit more time to focus on themselves, or maybe also because we were kind of confined and there was not so much else to focus on.
Commute time to go to work, to come back. So there was some time.
And so it really went into that women's work deeper and deeper and deeper. And I realized that many women were actually also coming to me with uncomfortable, negative experiences, traumatic experiences. And I realized that I need more knowledge and I need more tools and resources to actually hold that space. And this is when I was actually a practice client at the time for someone else who was doing a coaching training, exactly combining the aspect of sexuality, of psychosomatics, involving the body, involving a bit of movement, involving the breath, using meditation as a tool. And it felt like, wow, this is everything I've been collecting so far, and bringing it together in a coaching, as a coaching tool. And I never thought about becoming a coach, like it wasn't my plan. But then I did the training mostly for myself. And I have to add, I did all of the trainings mostly for myself. And then I felt like, oh my God, this is amazing. Like I need to share this. And this is what happened with the coaching. Then I was more and more also working in coaching, working in one-on-one sessions with people. And I realized I still have a thirst to know more. And this is when I started to study for the holistic practitioner, so to become an official holistic psychotherapist in Germany. And this is kind of, maybe one of the last steps now that I took, and then opening my own practice space since December. So this
Beautiful.
This road, which maybe was a little path, is now like becoming a proper road.
But this is so beautiful, and this is also, I think it has so much learnings and teachings in it itself, that actually the best way when we approach these big major changes is to take it step by step, and also to always remain connected to your feeling. Like, what am I feeling now when I experiment with this? Is there something that I'm lacking? Is there an area where I want to go deeper? For me, for instance, it was the same. In the first years, I worked mostly with life designing, because I always said there are so many coaching certifications out there. How should I even know which one I want, I trust, where I know that I can deliver really added value to my clients? And for me, it took me several years to understand also what my clients exactly needed. And for me, it was the understanding of those limiting beliefs and negative patterns that we keep repeating, reinforcing, and what to do with this and how to work effectively with this. And that's why I went with my main focus in neuroscience, positive intelligence, brain-based coaching, because I wanted to understand our brain. But this was a decision after quite some time being in practice, working with people and seeing what are the things that constantly come up. And I think this is the best way of investing your time and also your money, because money is always scarcity when you do these kind of changes. It's really a juggle in the beginning. So not to just blindly spend on this training, but start with one thing. And then, as you did, and as I did as well, try to put it in practice as fast as possible. Try to put up a workshop. Try to get feedback from friends, from family, from colleagues, and see what you do with this feedback. Does it feel right for them? Does it feel right for you? Where's an area where you would like to go still deeper? And it's really a very explorative, life designing kind of way of building this career change. Because what I see sometimes is this pressure people put on themselves, wanting to be, when they make the change, the jump, as you said it, that they have already this full picture that where you're right now, maybe with your own practice, with all the trainings and certifications, where you say, this feels now really solid for myself. They want to have this kind of picture already in the moment where they make the jump. And it's impossible. And I think this is one of the reasons why we so often postpone the change, because we think we have to have the full picture, the full clarity, the exact understanding. But unless we didn't start to try things out, we can never have this full understanding. And this is also what brings me back to another question, because you said for quite a while when you were in Brussels, you wanted to change things. What were for you the obstacles? Were there more external obstacles? Were there more internal obstacles? Or what do you think it took you so long to really jump?
Yeah, it's a good question, because it really took me almost 1.5 years from the moment where I felt like I want a change to then actually doing it, maybe even more than 1.5 years. And well, for me, it felt like a long time. Of course, maybe many people, right, they are in this position for much longer. But
Yes.
I realized like I was still young, and I was in a place where I wasn't feeling 100% comfortable. And I think there was this inner voice which was kind of trying to tell me that, but I didn't really listen to it because I had no connection whatsoever to my body or my intuition. Like it was not really there, I would say. And I think it was both, like external and internally. Like on the one hand, of course, making a big change would maybe mean to move. And I had a relationship in Brussels. I had a lot of friends in Brussels. So of course, right, there comes uncertainty, the loss of control, a bit the fear as well.
Yeah.
And on the other hand, I had a job which was really interesting, which was for a lot of people kind of the goal or something they were aspiring to. And I felt a bit, maybe disappointed, or a bit, I don't know. There was something that I couldn't explain. I knew that and that was what I figured out with life designing, that more and more actually how I like to view the world, how I want to see the future, I want to see my future, was more and more diverging actually from what I was actually doing on a daily basis.
Yeah.
And I mentioned there was somehow this like feeling of wanting to be more around women, because I was in a pure male office, and most of the people I was working with were men, and most of the issues we were working on were, let's say, not necessarily empowering women. And I think I wanted to put that more into the center of my life, to empower myself, to empower other women around me, and by this, right, the ripple effect, empower women in general. And I was looking for jobs around that topic, but I couldn't find anything that was speaking to me. And also I couldn't find anything that was more or less with the same salary and the same benefits. I mean, now my life has like shifted completely, right? And now maybe these things are not as important anymore for me.
Yeah.
But back then also, like changing to a job that would pay half of what I was earning, and maybe have less holidays and even work more. Like back then I was like, oh no, I'm too comfortable actually where I am, because it's not bad, but there's still something of me that wants out. Yeah.
Yeah. comfort can really be an enemy.
Yeah.
But I think this is really to the point, this kind of disconnect that we, at one moment when we pay more attention to ourselves, that we start to feel when we're working in an environment, when we're living in an environment that doesn't match our values, that doesn't match our aspirations, that doesn't match also our dreams. And often when this starts to happen and we feel this disconnect, it's like this intuition, it's we try to ignore it as much as possible, because when we know that we see it, we have to address it, then everything kicks in, the uncertainty, the fear, all those feelings which we try to push away as long as possible. But the more it's there and the longer it's there, it's becoming really louder and more painful. And for many people, it starts showing up physically in certain kind of diseases, often unexplained diseases. So that's when you really feel this disconnect, when this disconnect shows physically up in your life. And that's where most people, if they haven't listened up to this point, then they start listening, because then it becomes too obvious to ignore. But this is really a thing. And I think what is also important for people to understand, once you managed to listen more to your intuition and you tune into it more and more and more, it gets easier. And it gets easier to understand when you're on this path of changing, when something is going a little bit off track, or maybe you made a choice of doing this partnership or working with them, and you feel that wasn't right. You're not waiting as long as you waited back then before you did the first change. It's like, I understand now the message, and I understand and I know what happens if I don't do anything. So I make an adjustment much quicker. And but this is really a big point, that this knowing, and the first step is simply acknowledging that there is a disconnect, simply acknowledging that there is this unsatisfaction inside of yourself, which always comes when we ignore important values and important aspirations, and also when we ignore our important strength, because it's also a question of using our strength. I think we are all born with the wish that we use our strength, our very individual strength set, our gifts in the best possible way. And when this becomes impossible, it creates pain. And also there is a lot of shame and guilt in the beginning around it, because you think, you consider yourself ungrateful for all the things that you have and wanting to let go. So this is a big moment. But what I wanted to say, this is the biggest moment. Before this first major shift, this is the biggest moment. All the shifts and changes that come afterwards, they will feel much easier, because you're much attuned to what you really need, and you see it just as readjustments. And I think if you made already once a shift, there's not so much this element of guilt or shame around changing again. And when you see a little bit along the way during this journey of those last couple of years, what were some obstacles that you encountered along the way? Was it more external, or was it more internal, or was it both?
I think I want to add on a bit to what you mentioned right now, right? The physical changes, and I had a lot of problems with my stomach, like a lot
Same
of
here.
problems.
Same here. Stomach is everything.
Yeah, really. And this was something that came like 2017, still 2018, it was a bit present, but yeah, it was related to stress, not only at work, but like this maybe constant stress I was feeling back then. And as you said, right, then later, once you have made that, the bigger shift, let's say, what I noticed is that I was taking much better care of myself. And whenever I noticed that stress is coming, still, when I notice stress is coming up, or I don't feel well in this environment, or I don't connect with the people, then I make the changes much, much quicker, and I don't wait 1.5 years with stomach pain before essentially
Yes.
acting on it.
Yes.
So, not to say it's not difficult every time such a step is being taken, but it comes much quicker. And I think the yes that I feel for myself is much stronger than the no that I feel for, right, relationships, job, and so on.
Yeah.
I think, yeah, I mean, the last couple of years cannot say that they have not been challenging, right? Like now it sounds all like great and wonderful.
No. Yeah.
But nothing of this was really planned. So I still sometimes have that feeling of uncertainty about the future. And then there is also the trust, knowing something will happen, something will develop. But there is uncertainty as a freelancer, or when you want to kind of do your own thing. And especially if what you're doing is not exactly out there in a way, right, that you're imagining it. Of course, we're all individuals, and maybe you would say, oh, there's another coach, but then there's a whole life story behind it. So I think those are probably the internal challenges, right? The like dealing with the fear of the future, the uncertainty. Of course, also financially, it was not always easy. Something that was really important for my old job, where I earned much more money, is that I had savings that paid also for many of the trainings that I did, and paid for the travels that I did afterwards. So I'm really, really deeply grateful for that, because that really offered me, or gave me the privilege of actually choosing something else for myself. But I mean, even when, let's say, financial challenges came up, I did something, I acted on it. And this is also something that I took from the life designing, that, right, these like stones in our path, like, or these, sometimes it feels like challenges, but they are often, very often, opportunities for growth, right? Or maybe opportunities to look for a solution elsewhere, like to think a bit outside of the box. So yeah, whenever I didn't feel good or safe with what I was doing, I made sure that I did feel safe again. And I think this is also when it comes back into play, that I have, I studied many years, I have work experience. I am maybe still an economist at heart, in somewhere. And that the tools I learned there, I can still use them, but maybe in my environment. And at some point after COVID, when a bit like this whole hype of wanting to do things online kind of shifted and decreased, I was thinking like, wow, I need a certain amount of money, right, to live comfortably, but I don't want to be out there with the energy of having to sell things or market things all the time. So I looked for a job, but I looked for a job that would actually fit the kind of career change I did already until that point. And I started working for a consultancy in menstrual health. So this was wonderful because it was combining my economic background and the business background, but also it was a woman-led company. It was a company working for menstrual health, right? So we were working, of course, mostly for women or for people that are menstruating. And yeah, this was great for me because actually I could combine the two. And this is something that I hadn't seen before, that I could do, that there are opportunities for that.
Great. Yeah. And I think this is also important to highlight, that if we make the choice to become an entrepreneur, it doesn't mean that we cannot combine it with also working with others, working for others, or part-time, or combining it, finding our really very individual structure, how it works best for us, also for this need of security that we have in this very moment. Because this need for security can also change over time. Sometimes it can be less, sometimes we need this security much more because of other life circumstances. So to not see it exclusively, like now I'm an entrepreneur, now it will be only like this. You can always combine it. And I think the beautiful thing, especially in Europe and Germany, there are many opportunities for part-time work. For instance, here in Brazil, that's not the case. So it's much more difficult to combine it. But in especially Germany, you can find work where you have a stable income, but you work just part-time or a couple of days a week, and the rest you combine with your own venture. So this is an important thing, is when you feel like the pressure of financial insecurity is becoming too high, act on it. Look for something that provides you for a period again, or as a life, or as a model. It can be also long-term model this way, which can be a good choice for you. So really see what you can adapt in this moment. And I think what I see from both of us is there will always be uncertainty. There will be always fears. And there were fears before and there are fears now. They might look different. And there's uncertainty. There was uncertainty before making the jump and uncertainty now. But what is much different from my point of view is this sense of empowerment that I feel. And exactly what you said, I know now what to do when the anxiety comes up. I know how to support my body. I know how to take self-care. I know when I feel that the financial security is becoming too big, I will do something. I will look for this solution and this solution, and I have the resources to deal with whatever is coming up. So I think the main difference is this sense of empowerment, and also this sense of when you're really in a place where you're working, or most of the time working with the things that are so dear to your heart, it gives you so much energy. And this is positive energy. And this is such an important counterbalance for the uncertainty, for the fears, for the anxiety that make completely different from certain aspects. But I am much different now after making this change. And I feel so much more confident of knowing what to do with these things, with these emotions, with these life situations that still come up, but just to act differently on them and then to feel differently.
Yeah. And I think also what's important for me always when I take decisions is that I know these decisions are reversible. Like whatever decision I take now, I can change my opinion in 3 months time. So this is really important for me to know, because also if, let's say, someone decides to go into a part-time job, right, or go out of the job and like jump fully in, like we can always reverse these decisions. And I think also, again, thinking about the generational change, right? For my grandparents, for example, it was normal to study or maybe do a training, and then you're essentially forever with one company. Or like it's very normal that you stay for decades with one company or in one profession. And nowadays, like, again, people my age, they jump companies quite quickly. They change positions quickly, every couple of years, maybe, or even more often, especially also in Berlin. You have very fast-paced environment with a lot of startups, which I think it can be really exciting. And it doesn't mean anymore just because you have like these gaps, like they used to call it in your CV, like it doesn't have to be negative anymore. And I think like the spirit or the minds of many founders or employers now, they're totally fine with that, and they're looking for interesting people that bring maybe a different spirit into the company, or they're maybe especially creative, for example. So I think this is maybe a fear that I remember people having when I was younger, when I was in my 20s, like, oh, I cannot have a gap in my CV. And now I'm thinking like, look, it doesn't really matter. Maybe I mean, maybe I have to say in parentheses, right? It depends in which area you're working. But definitely, I can say that for myself here in Berlin, it has never been an issue.
Yeah.
But rather maybe more interesting also during an
Totally.
interview. Yeah.
Totally. And probably the career where it matters won't be the career that you would want to go into again anymore. So it matches. Oh, beautiful. But before we wrap up, Lily, what would you say would be your number one advice for someone who feels like, oof, I'm not at the right place and doesn't feel right? I know that I maybe have to change, but I can't get myself there.
I have like 1,000 thoughts on this, but I try to kind of sum it up. I think something important that you said before, Yvonne, is right to check in with yourself. How am I feeling right now in the space that I am in? And it could mean that maybe right now I have a deep sense of safety, like I need safety. Maybe that's a need for me. Then maybe if there's a need for safety, maybe it's not the right moment to jump fully into something else, right? Or if that is really not an issue right now, then maybe there are more options available. So I think really it boils down to finding your own truth, connecting. Again, we say intuition, right? I mean, you can call it however you want, but maybe that inner voice that sometimes tells you stuff, and sometimes it might be wrong, but sometimes it might be right too. So really feeling into who am I as a person, and what are my needs, what are my desires. And I think also we don't have to change 100% of what we're doing, right? We don't have to jump out of the relationship and fly to Thailand and quit your job and stuff. Yeah. But maybe there's just like 1% that you can change. Maybe it's very like a tiny step that you can take. Yeah. And maybe by taking a tiny step today, it might be a little bit bigger step in 3 months. And maybe it's a huge step in a year or so. So I think just to stay, let's say, right, we're in our comfort zone. Sometimes we're a bit too comfortable. So moving into the growth zone, but also making sure we're not in the panic zone yet. But actually like staying in between growth and comfort and like easing back and forth. And yeah, I think taking it easy with ourselves, right?
This is such a beautiful point to end this conversation, because I think there's so much harsh feelings around ourselves as well. There can be so much self-blaming and self-pressure on us, and this also prevents from our brain how the way our brain works. If we are constantly putting pressure on us, if we are constantly under this also self-made stress of feeling guilty, feeling this pressure, our brain doesn't have the capacity to expand into ideas. It doesn't have the capacity to move into explore mode, to move to curiosity, because it's constantly fighting off, the survival mode we're in. So this is why I say also for a starter, try to come back, as you said, to this point of self-love, of self-acceptance. Be good to yourself, be kind to yourself. Don't pressure yourself if you don't have the answers figured out. Look for help when you feel it's too overwhelming to do it for yourself, because the most important thing in the beginning is to bring yourself back to a point where ideas can come, where insights can come, where knowledge can come, and also this connection with our intuition. It can only happen when we are not anymore in this fight or flight mode. When we are calmer, when our nervous system is calmer, then we can really work on the ideas, on the exploration, the creativity. And this is a really important point, is start with being kind to yourself. Start with the loving part. Start with the part where you say, I want to do something good for myself today. And by doing this, I'm investing also in future change. that happens along the way.
Yeah, yeah, beautifully said, Yvonne.
Ah,
I love
Lily,
that. Yeah.
it was such a beautiful conversation, and I'm so happy. So, if people want to connect with you, so you work online, you have your private practice in Berlin. So people, you're obviously, multilingual, and you work with international people. So people can connect with you through Instagram, or what's the best way to connect with you, or on your website?
Yeah, I think Instagram is probably, as you're speaking here,
Great.
also a good place to start. And then my website, yeah, it's only in German though, but yeah, as you said, I speak English for sure and some other languages too. So yeah, if someone feels like having any questions, yeah, feel free to reach out to me. Thank you, Yvonne. It
Oh,
was so
beautiful.
lovely to
It
see
was
you and
so
to talk to
wonderful to
you.
see you, and let's stay connected as always. But it was wonderful to talk in person right now.
I
So have
know.
a wonderful day, Lily. Bye.
Thank you, Yvonne. Bye. Ciao.
Bye.